Welcome to Guy and Spirit Creations. I'm Jonas, and today we are doing a kitbashing classic, converting 5 rare Astra Militarium Regiments. First out are the Truskan Snowhounds, who utilizes harsh climate headgear. I create this wargear by peeling out a unwanted Cadian melon from a helmet and replace it with the mask of an Atalan biker. For all these kit bashes, I built the bodies according to the instructions first. The Snowhounds are known for their skills as marksmen, developing keen eyes from hunting white-furred beasts in the snow. So I made a regular las rifle into a sniper rifle. I simply added a scope. I also made a silencer from a 2mm styrene rod, which I cut to length and then drilled. I drill all my barrels because my mama raised me right. I'd love to show you how I painted these 5 dudes, but there isn't enough room in one video for that. However, for each guardsman, I'll include a mini tutorial, and for the Snowhounds, it's how to make a snow base. I'm doing 2 different kinds of snow. First, an icy one using Vallejo still water and Army Painter Battlefield snow. I just mix it about 50-50 and then apply it. Once I'm happy with how it looks, I take a pinch of the Army Painter snow and sprinkle it like Salt Bay to make it look even more frosty. For the snow around the base, I instead mix PVA glue and white ink with the Army Painter snow. And like before, sprinkle on some extra snow once the mix is applied. First guardman done, and here's the recipes for anyone who wants to paint a snowhound of their own. These will be included for each guardsman. Next up, and these are my favorites, the Savlar Chem-Dogs. For this loot-loving guardsman, I'm using the Commissar as a base, which has the perfect long coat. For the head, I went with another Gene Stealer Colt head. This one has a very nice rebreather. Once I managed to make it fit in the collar, after some trimming, I glued it in. I used a Cadian ammo satchel as a sort of air filter and trimmed it and the collar so they'd be flush. I also added tubes with guitar string for a more detailed workflow on how to do that. Check out my Lucius video. I removed the wings from the chest plate since I felt just having a skull looked more menacing and less like towing the Imperium line. For his left arm, I gave him the ammo belt arm from the Cadian upgrade kit. It makes no real sense for him to carry this ammo since, as you'll see soon, he uses a shotgun, other than, loot. And that aforementioned shotgun is another Gene Stealer Colt bit. I could have given him another weapon, but in my mind, nothing says I'm a badass than one-handing a shotgun. I guess I can blame growing up watching the Terminator movies. To add some weathering to the cloak, I drill holes, which I widen with my knife. I also cut little notches at the bottom. For both, I smooth them out by rubbing the edges with plastic cement. I felt the Necromunda base was a little bare, so I wanted to add cabling to the floor using both 0.5 styrene rods and nylon guitar string. First I drill holes and glue the rods and strings underneath the base, and then bend them in place and glue them flat. For the painting of the base, I've started with a brown base coat and some metallic overbrushing. I then simply covered the base in dirty down rust, which I of course adjusted later with water and some metal paint. To add even more story to the base, I wanted to use pigments. And this is a really good hobby tip. Don't buy expensive pots of single dry pigments when you can get a whole box of multiple colors. Here I'm using a vibrant yellow to look like sulfur dust. Maybe this chem-dog is standing inside a munitions factory. And this chem-dog is all done. I really like how menacing he looks, like he's sizing you up to see which loot he can steal from you when you sleep. For the Drookian Fen Guard, basically Scots in space, I started with the backpack. I got rid of the antenna and this cable. This backpack wasn't designed for this Cadian torso, so I needed to adjust both parts until I could glue them together. I removed this pouch, which of course would have been easier before, and cleaned it up. I attached this later to the front to act as the sporran. Then I just glue on the autogun like in the instructions. Next, since the planet of Druk 6 is covered in toxic bogs and swamps, I'll use this rebreather from a salamander upgrade sprue. It needs freeing from the Space Marine head and a little trimming and reducing with the scratchy paper. Then I flatten the face of this Cadian head, sort of like those Persian cats, and then make it permanent with plastic cement. Unlike the Savlar Chem-Dog where I added tubes, I used these little Cadian mask filters and added them either side of the mask. Time to sculpt that kilt. First I just make sure the putty covers all the way around and fits snugly around the pouches and has a tidy and straight edge at the bottom. Then I can sculpt in some creases, focusing on the space between the legs, since with this power stance the fabric will be stretched against the legs. Kilts have certain patterns to show which clan you're from, and the Drookians are no different. The key to making any freehand not look like it's completely out of place is to mix the color you want it to be, in this case red, with the color of the thing, in this case a grayish blue, and then to thin it out so it goes on more transparent. This also makes sense since fabric is fuzzy and has a space between the threads. Then for a highlight you can add more of the color, red, to the mix and make it stand out more. I went for a green border around the red using the same workflow. And this Fen Guard is done. I really like how the base ties everything together and really makes it look like a swamp. For the barbaric Kanak Skull Takers, I went with this large dude from the World Eater's Jackal kit, since they're described as almost half Ogrins in stature and temperament. I removed any chaosy spikes and tube access points. Kanak Skull Takers love axes, and I thought what better for this veteran than a chain axe. I went with a Chaos Marauder hand, snipped off a handle here and there, adjusted the length of the arm, and after attaching the hand, made sure to pin the handles in place. I gave the handle some length so it could be wielded as a two-hander. The other preferred weaponry of the Skull Takers are las pistols, so I freed one from the clutches of Lord Marshal Dreer and attached it to the other arm after some trimming and adjusting to both parts. For the head I'm using another Chaos Marauder bit, but to get it in place I first trim the neck a little bit. To make sure it sits firmly in place, I use some sprue glue, perfect for when a attachment point isn't perfectly flush. Next, to cover that unsightly gap in his back, I break out the fur texture plate. Not to toot my own horn, I can sculpt pretty decently, but using a texture plate for me is more about saving time. Once the fur is in place, I adjust the texture and improve upon it. It's sort of like when you get a store pizza, but you add some extra toppings and cheese to make it better. I of course add some taken skulls to the fur cloak, not the pizza. For the painting, it's more freehanding. And just like before, the first layer is mixed with the skin color and thinned down. I lay this down all patchy, both because I imagine this war paint is applied with someone's fingers and isn't gonna be pristine on a brute sweating and maiming across a battlefield. After the white, I cover a smaller area with blue and an even smaller area with red. Even if it doesn't show all too well here, I then apply a thin color filter off my skin tone to further integrate and fade the war paint into the skin. And this brute is done. I found it a fun challenge to create a model that could so easily be chaos, but is still a loyalist. And the last regiment to cover is the Brontian Longknives, lovers of blades and haters of shirts. Again, I'm using a jackal body. And also again, I'm using a Gene Stealer Colt head, where I of course removed the little ridges. And after trimming the neck and removing the ball joint, I attach it to its chiseled torso. For his right arm, I got this power sword from the Canadian Command Squad. I shortened the arm so it'll make sense with the glove. And to really drive home the whole fascination for stabby stuff, I got another blade from the Inquisition Agents Kill team. I didn't learn this until recently, but the guy it's from used to be a 54mm scale dude called Sergeant Stone from the Inquisitor game. I added just one pauldron since asymmetry is cool, and it's common for fencers to only have armor on the side facing the enemy, which makes sense thematically. Again, to cover the gap in the back and add even more blades, I sculpt this sort of like blade holster thing he can wear almost like a backpack. I indent the blades so it's really easy to glue them in before sculpting the straps holding them in place. Next, I remove the armor around the knees to sculpt these padded fabric ones instead. Instead of a diamond pattern like in the artwork, I went for a simpler ridged pattern. Let's paint a power sword. I use this same technique when painting Lucius' sword. First, I just block out the sections of reflection and cover a smaller and smaller area with progressively lighter colors. I'm not going monochromatic here. Instead, I'm doing a progression from violet to blue to turquoise to green to lime green to yellow and in the end off-white. But when improving the transition between each color, I don't spend ages glazing to make it smooth. I instead make a series of thin lines, sometimes letting there be more space between the lines and let the previous color show. It's a back and forth. I keep progressing until I'm doing the last few lines in white. This is, in my opinion, a much easier and faster way of blending a flat surface, and it looks cool, like the surface is shimmering with energy. This long blade is done. The skin turned out really nice. I always love painting skin. And that power sword turned out really nice too. Hope you really enjoyed the video and found some inspiration to do your own rare regiments. Since this is a new channel, liking and commenting on the video helps a lot. And of course, subscribing. Have a good one. Bye.